see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. To access the SETA system, please note that you would need to then type in sims.catseta.org.za. Note that I'll be taking you through SDF registration, company management, banking details update, as well as the discretionary grant application. So you need to type in sims.catseta.org.za. And as soon as you then type in that, you'll see that you'll be presented with a 3-step process. You would need to follow this 3-step process before you register. The first one is documents, the required documents that you would need to register on the system. Note that this would be the sample of the SDF appointment letter. You then click on it to download. You will then need to open the file and then populate all the information within the file. Once that has then been completed, note that you will also need a certified copy of your ID. On step 2, this is a user guide that you can download. It's a step-by-step process that shows you how to then register on the system as an SDF. As soon as you download it, you will see that it has a detailed step-by-step that shows you how to then register on the system. Once that is done and we're happy, now we move over then to log in. I'll then just move over to my test site. We'll then need to then click on register. Upon clicking on register, you will then be presented with the POPI Act. You then scroll down and then click on consent and then submit. Upon clicking on the POPI Act, you will see that you presented with the registration type. We are doing SDF registration, so then we'll click on SDF registration. Upon clicking on SDF registration, you will then be presented with a part where you either be required to enter in your RSA ID or your passport number. I will then just enter in a passport number for training purposes. And I'll click on submit. Upon clicking on submit, you will then be required to then fill out your details. So fill in the title, the first name. Please note that when you're adding your first name, please do not add your second name on the first name field, as that will cause an error when submitting. Please do not also add special characters within the first name and the surname, as that will also cause issues when submitting. You'll then be required to then enter in your initials, the date of birth, the equity, your disability. You need to then select the gender. Please note that you then need to enter in a valid email address. So then I'll just enter in that email address. You'll be required to then enter in the telephone number, cell phone number, and indicate your home language, as well as your nationality. Note that if you do not see it on the drop down, please note that you can then search for it. We then move over to the physical address. So I'll be required to then enter in the physical address. Please note that when capturing the physical address, do not add any special characters like commas or and signs, as that will also cause an error when submitting. I'll also then be required to then capture the town. Please note that when capturing the town, note that the drop-down menu is not showing as long, because it's then too long to then show. So what happens is you need to then type out the town that you are looking for. Because I'm in Midrand, I'll then type in MID. As soon as I type in MID, you'll see that the system will then bring out a list of towns that I am searching. I'll then select the town that I'm looking for. The same with the municipality. if you click on the drop down, it will not show each and every municipality that's on the system. I will then need to search it by typing out the name of the municipality. So I'll then type in City of Johannesburg. As soon as I type in City of Johannesburg, you'll see that the system will then bring out what I'm trying to type. I'll then select it from the drop down. I'll then indicate whether this address is in the rural or urban area. And if the physical address is the same as the postal address, I will then indicate that by clicking on this tick over there. I'll then be required then to indicate the citizen residential status, social economic status, I'll say unemployed, and higher school qualification, and then years as a SDF. I'll then put in one. As soon as all the information is then captured, I then click on continue. Upon clicking on continue, you will then be presented with the company registration form. This is where you then indicate whether the company is a non-levy paying entity, existing non-levy paying entity, or a CAT-SETA levy paying entity. As soon as I select non-levy paying entity, I'll then be required to capture my company details, which is the company name, company registration number, company email, company's telephone number, as well as the SIC code. Please note with the SIC code, I would need to then delete this brackets that is inserted there, and I can then type out the SIC code. Whether you type in the description or the code, the system will then pick up what you are trying to type. And I'll select the one that I'm looking for. As soon as you select the SIC code, you'll see that the subsector will then be pre-selected. We then indicate the organization type, whether it's a private entity, a public TVET college, and so forth. And the documents that you are required to upload, which is the SDF company appointment letter. You then click to upload. And then you'll also be required to then upload the certified copy of your IDA, which is not older than 6 months. I'll then click to upload. Please do note that if the system tells you that your file is too large, note that you would need to compress the file and then upload the file onto the system. So if you get an error message to say that the error message that the file is too large, you then need to ensure that you compress the file on your computer and then you then upload it onto the system. Once that is done, there is a save and submit button that you need to click on to save and submit this information. As soon as you click on it, you will see that it will have the company name, and you have the option of then updating or deleting that company and re-entering the information. If you want to then submit the application, we then click on submit. Upon clicking on a submit, you'll see that your registration has been processed and CAT-SETA will now review the application. So I'll just then log in as a CAT-SETA person and then approve that application. So only once this application is approved would you be able to then move over to the next process. Sorry, this part takes a bit long because logging into this profile has a lot of data on it. So then CAT-SETA will then receive your task and then they will view the application and then they will approve or reject the application. So I will then approve the application. And as soon as CAT-SETA approves the application, you as the primary SDF will then immediately receive an email to say that your application has been approved. Please may you then proceed with the next step, which is company details. So I'll just log into the email and then show you. the email that you then receive. So if the email does not appear in your inbox, please can I request that you check your spam and your trash folder. If it still does not appear on there, you then need to go back to the system. You'll then say resend confirmation email, and then you'll need to enter in either your RSA ID or your passport number. So I'll just have to go back. So to resend confirmation email, you click on that, you select your RSA ID, your passport number, and then you enter in the passport number, and then they'll ask you then to enter in your email address. So please ensure that you enter in the correct email, because this is where the login details will then be sent to. And I'll click on resend confirmation email, and then that message will then appear to say that the email has been sent to you. Once that has been done, you'll then receive an email in your inbox. So I'm just checking if I enter the correct email address. So that's why it's important that you enter in the correct email address. So I'll just then resend another confirmation email. And then it says the confirmation email has been emailed to you. I'll then log back into my inbox, and I'll go to my inbox, and I'll then receive an email that says, "Dear Taryn, please confirm your email address." So in order for you to confirm your email address, you need to click on the word confirm. If you do not click on the word confirm, you will not be able to log into your profile. So I'll then click on confirm, and then I will then copy that one-time password, and I'll then log into my profile. And then upon logging into your profile, you will then see you have an outstanding task on your dashboard, which will then read the process name, which is Skills Development Facilitator Registration. The initial application for Taryn has been approved. Please complete the rest of the application. So in order for you to complete the rest of the application, you then click on the icon under View and Edit. And then you'll see that the detail that you've captured will then appear. We then move over to the company information. So upon clicking on company information, it will have the company name, registration number, and now we will then need to complete all the icons that appear under company details. The first icon will then be update. So you'll then click on the update icon, and then we'll be required to then enter in the trading name, the physical address of your company. Please note that you should not add any commas or special characters, as that will then cause an issue on the system when submitting. With regards to town, please note that you need to type out the town that you are looking for. So I'm looking for Midrand. I'll type it out. Municipality, I'll then put in city of Johannesburg, and I'll then select it. As soon as I select the municipality, you'll see that the province will then auto-populate. I'll then indicate the rural and urban intervention, and this is where I'll then be required to then enter in the GPS coordinates. In order for you to enter in the GPS coordinates, you need to click on check GPS coordinates. As soon as you click on that, you'll see that you'll be redirected to another page where you'll be required to then enter in the name of your street, and then you'll click on find. As soon as you click on find, you'll see that the latitude and longitude will then be provided. You'll then need to scroll down to the point where it's then broken down in degrees, minutes, and seconds. So in order for me to capture this information correctly, I'll then split the screen. I'll move that one side and I'll move this side. And then you'll just scroll down. So latitude degrees will be a negative value. It's always a negative value. So please add that negative sign. So it's negative 25. Latitude minutes is 57. Latitude seconds is 50.184. Please ensure that you add those digits after the comma. I'll then be required to then capture the longitude degrees, which is 28. The minutes is 7. Please note that if it's a 1-digit, you need to add a 0 in front of it. So you need to put 07 instead of just putting 7. I'll say 07, and then the longitude seconds is 40.623. Please note that it's only 3 digits after the comma. So once the GPS coordinates has then been captured, I then go back to my full screen, and then I'll indicate if the postal address is the same as the physical address. I'll then indicate the legal organization status, the number of employees for training purposes. I will then put 1 employee. I'll then indicate the financial start month as well as the end month. And then I'll indicate, does a recognition agreement exist between the company and labor unions? I'll say yes or no. And then I'll click on submit. Upon clicking on submit, you'll see that that page will then close. I'll then be required to move over to the next icon, which is called other SDFs. Note that you have the option of adding other SDFs, such as a secondary SDF. If you do not have a secondary SDF, you can then move over to the next icon, which is company contacts. This is a required field that you will then need to complete. So in order for you to then add a company contact, you then click on it, and then you need to enter in the ID number or passport number of that company contact. So then I'll select RSA ID. And I'll enter in the person's ID number, and I'll click on submit. If they're already a user on the system, maybe as an assessor, you'll see that the information will auto-populate. If they're a new person on the system, you then need to capture their details like their first name, their surname, their initials, their email address. Note that the email address that you capture would need to be the correct working email address, because all communication regarding their profile will then be sent to them. So for this company contact, their designation is a financial manager, and I give them the user responsibility of banking details confirmation. So they will then need to then log into their profile and then confirm the banking details that I'll be capturing as the primary SDF. You then be required to then capture their address details, and then you'll click on submit. Upon clicking on submit, you'll see that it will say update successful. You then close this window and we move over to the next icon, which is employee details. We then click on it where it says employees by the plus sign. We then click on it, and we'll now need to capture the amount of employees that I stated under the first icon, which was the update icon. So if I state that I have 1 employee, I'll need to capture that 1 employee. If I state that I have 5 employees, I'll then need to capture that 5 employees. So I'll then capture my 1 employee. I'll select RSA ID. I'll indicate their first name, their last name, as well as their initials, the employment type, and I'll need to indicate the OFO code. Note that the OFO code, because it's a large list to display on the system, you'll be required to then type out either the OFO code or the description. So this, for example, this employee is an assessor, so I'll then put in assessor, and as soon as I type in assessor, you'll see that it will bring down a list. I'll then indicate which assessor that person is. I'll then be required to indicate their equity as well as disability status and the highest school qualification. Then I'll click on submit. Upon clicking on submit, you'll see that the employee details will now display in the table below. I have the option of then updating that employee details or deleting that employee. So once all the icons has then been captured, you now need to click on the green complete workflow task button in order for SETA to now approve and for you to be able to have your company now active on the SIM system. So I'll then click on complete workflow task. They'll ask you, are you sure? You will then say yes. Upon clicking on yes, you will see that the task will then disappear from my dashboard. This means that the task has now been submitted to SETA for review. I'll quickly log in as a SETA person. So once SETA has reviewed the application, you will receive confirmation via email. So you always need to check your emails to know that if the application has been approved or rejected, so you can action accordingly. So I'll then approve this application. As soon as I approve, my inbox will then indicate that my application has been approved. So I'll just quickly wait for this to load. And then I'll just refresh. And in my inbox, if it doesn't appear in the inbox, note that you also need to ensure that you check your spam folder as well as your junk. I'm logged into the incorrect inbox. So it will then read as follows. Dear Taryn, kindly be advised that your registration has been approved for this company and this is your N number. So you'll see that you will receive this email. Once you receive this email, you then need to log back into your profile and complete the next step, which is the company management. So you then log into your profile. And then you'll need to navigate to SDF and you'll then need to click on company management. As soon as you click on company management, you'll see that your company will appear here and then you need to then click on it in order for you to make any updates. As soon as you click on it on the right hand side where it says unlock company details, I'll need to click on that in order for you to unlock the details that will allow you then to capture the information. So I'll then click on it. And you'll see that now I have the option of then updating information. So if your company address has then been updated, you have that option of changing it. And as soon as you change the information, you need to click on that submit button. You then move over to entity contacts. If the entity contact has left the company or their email address has been updated, you have that option of then updating their email addressing or removing this person from this company. You'll see that the employee details has also then populated. If the employee details has been updated, you can then delete them or update the information. You then be required to move over to banking details. Please note that you would first need to capture your banking details before you can move over to the discretionary grant application. So I'll then need to capture the banking details, the name of the account holder, the bank name. As soon as you select the bank name, you see that the branch code will then auto-populate. You then be required to then indicate the account type, say current, and then I'll be required to then capture the bank account number. And I'll need to indicate the branch name. Note that you'll also be required to upload the bank letter confirming the bank details. Please note that this is not the company letterhead. So in order for you to upload the bank letter, you then need to go to the right-hand side where it says view and click on the upload icon. As soon as you click on it, you then need to select the file. And you click on. As soon as you upload it, you'll see that it will then display the file name. Once all that information has then been captured, please note that you need to click on the submit button in order for the system to then save that information. You then click on submit. I'll ask you, are you sure? You will say yes. As soon as you click on submit, your company contact will then receive this banking details and they will then need to approve or reject the information. So once the banking details has now been captured, you can now move over to the next. You can now move on to the next section, which is discretionary grant application. In order for you to then select to initiate the discretionary grant application, you need to click on the icon under Initiate Grant. You then click on Initiate. As soon as you click on Initiate, you will see that you have a blue button that says Initiate Grant. You then need to click on it. Upon clicking on it, you will see that it will have the discretionary ref number, the DG ref number, as well as the window and the financial year ending. In order for you to start your application, you need to click on the icon under View and Edit. Upon clicking on View and Edit, you will see that you will be presented with the company details. So all the information that you've captured under company management will then auto-populate onto the discretionary grant application, like the company details, the company contact information, your employment data, and you then move over to now start the discretionary grant application. We then click on it. As soon as you click on it, you then need to indicate the funding method, which is discretionary grant, and the intervention type. We'll select learnership. As soon as I type in learnership as the intervention, you'll see that the pivotal, non-pivotal training will auto-populate, as well as the NQF aligned will then auto-populate. You then be required to then enter in the type of learnership. So you then need to remove the information that's there. You have the option of adding the description, which is the name of the learnership. So you need to type it out in full. If you have the learnership code, you can then type out the learnership code. The system will then bring up what you're trying to type. So I'll then type in 25Q25. As soon as I type it out, you'll see that it will bring the list of learnerships, and I'll then need to select the one that I'm looking for. As soon as I select it, you see that the ETQA will then auto-populate. I'll then need to select the NQF level, and I'll then need to indicate the municipality. So I'll then say City of Johannesburg. As soon as I type it out, you'll see that the system will then bring that up. The province will then be auto-populated. I'll then need to indicate the provider name, and I'll also then need to type out the OFO code. Please note that you need to type out either the OFO code name or the description. So then I'll then type it out. So I'm looking for So as soon as I type in tourism, you'll see that I then need to select the one that is correct. I'll then select it, and I'll need to indicate the estimated start date as well as the end date. I'll say end date. And I'll need to indicate the provider type, as well as I'll need to then have the occupational shortage and skills gap. And then I also need to then indicate the number of learners. So I'll say there is 15, and of that 15 learners, I'll need to indicate how many is Black female, how many is Black male, and so forth. So if I indicate that there's 10 Black females and then 5 Black males, under the rest of the demographic, I'll need to indicate 0. If you leave it blank, the system will then not save that information. In 0, 0, and then of that 15 learners, I'll need to indicate how many have disabilities. So I'll just put in 2, And then of those 15 learners, how many are you? Then I'll indicate that with 15. Once that information is then captured in, I'll then need to click on submit. Note that you have the option of adding more than one intervention, and you also have the option of then updating or deleting the intervention that you have added. So once the discretionary grant application has then been captured, we will then move over to the project implementation plan. Upon clicking on the project implementation plan, you'll then be presented with the information that you've captured. We'll then show the intervention, the qualification, and then the number of learners. You'll then be required to then indicate the project recruitment date. So you need to click on the calendar and say you want to recruit learners, and then the project induction. Please note that this is training for training purposes, so I'm just selecting random dates. I'll then indicate the project registration date, estimate 50% progression date, and then the estimate completion date, and the logistics aspects, e.g. the log sheets, training modules, moderators, and etc. I'll indicate yes or no, and I'll indicate whether a accredited provider has been identified. So I'll say yes or no. So upon clicking on that, I'll then need to save all the information that I have captured. Please note that as soon as you click on save, you'll have that update successful. Once you've saved, note that you will not be able to make any amendments to the section unless you go back to the discretionary grant application, delete this intervention, re-enter the information, and allow it to then populate a new table in order for you to then capture the correct dates. Once the project implementation plan has then been captured, we move over to the project motivation. Note that you'll be required to capture the purpose, the project objectives, the benefits to CATSI, the benefits to recipient, the turnover, as well as the total assets. Please note that there is no limit on what you can type. So you need to type out all this information. I'm just adding test in there, and then I'll need to indicate the turnover, total assets, and then I'll need to click on submit as soon as I've then captured the information. Do note that if you want to add more information after clicking on the submit button, you have the option of doing that, but ensure that as soon as you made updates, note that you need to click on the save button every time you make updates to this section. Once that is done, we then move over to the document upload. This is where you'll be required to then upload all the required documents. Note that the documents that are required is the one that is ticked. So you'll see that I have the first document that is ticked, which is the organization registration documents. So I'll need to upload that document. I'll then be required to then upload the valid text clearance. It then skips the B certificate, and then we go over to the declaration of interest. I'll then be required to then upload declaration of authorized person, acknowledgement of CATSI, grant policy, and I'll be required to then upload proof of accreditation, as well as the detailed implementation plan, including the recruitment plan. So once all the documents has then been uploaded and you're happy with the application, if you want to make any updates, you have the option of then re-uploading a document if you then notice that you've uploaded the incorrect document. If you're happy with all the information and all the documents that it's uploaded, you then move over to the sign off page. You then click on that you have acknowledged and you've read and understood the SETA grant policies, terms and conditions. So once you click on that and you click on submit grant application, the application will now be submitted to SETA for review. You see that that window will then close. You will then receive an email to say that SETA has now received your email. So it will then read, SETA would like to thank you for submitting your discretionary grant application for the company's name and which window. Kindly be advised that this is your RIF number, so it will include your DG RIF number and it will indicate that it has now been processed and outcome will be communicated accordingly. So that concludes the SDF registration, the company management, banking details, update, discretionary grant application. So if